at a bus stop, blinded by the headlights.
Hailing from the New South Wales Central Coast, after a couple of single releases to date, she's now dropped her debut EP. It's called Zone Out. And to tell us all about it, Jessie-May joins us on the program. Welcome to Aussie Music Weekly, Jessie-May.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
For, I guess, people who might not be familiar with your work, because obviously we've heard some of your recordings over recent years, but songwriting is actually something that I understand you started from an incredibly young age. So how about you talk us through how some of your first songwriting compositions first came about?
Yeah, that's true. I wrote songs from a really young age. I think I was about 5 years old, and I didn't know how to paragraph things or even really write properly at that age, but I knew that music had its own sort of patterns and structures. So I would go into word processor, because we had an old computer, just a really old one as a kid, one of those bricks, and all it could do was, play solitaire, have word processor or MS Paint. So I would go in word processor all the time and just write songs, but instead of doing paragraphs, I would color code each section. So for the verses, which I didn't know were verses because I was so young, I would put them as that's light blue, and then I'll be for the chorus we'll do purple, and that's how I would start writing my own songs just in my own time. I never played an instrument because I was so young at that age, but I would just sing them just all the time. One of the first songs I wrote was about my older sister, and it was literally just about different parts of my relationship with her. And then I wrote another one about being yourself, and it was something when will my reflection show who I am or something. But I was always really interested in it. And then I didn't play an instrument till I was 16. Before that, at 14 years old, I had this musical theatre company that I loved because I had a really struggling home life, and art was always a way for me to express myself. So I used different art forms to get a lot off my chest, and then I was ostracized by my peers at school, so I didn't even have a good school life. I was academic though, but I was always kind of, on the outside looking in. I had a place that I could call home. Eventually, when I was 16, I was like, you know what, I want to put music to all these things that I'm writing. So I taught myself guitar from YouTube, and we didn't have enough money to afford lessons, so I just taught myself guitar to then put music to the things that I was writing. And then I started going to open mics around my local area, and that's when everything kind of kicked off.
Wow, okay, that's a really interesting transition. Yeah, because I guess not many musicians could probably talk of having, started with songwriting and then gravitate into to playing musical instruments there. And I love the term word processing. We haven't heard that in years.
Yeah.
It's interesting too that you mentioned YouTube, because YouTube is obviously the platform that you use to sort of really, build your career and get your name out there, and it also essentially saw you, putting together your own music videos to accompany your songs. So how challenging was it to focus not only on your music, but the visual side of things as well?
Visual arts does come naturally to me as well. It's taught me a lot of things like patience and organizing and stuff, because I am really good as an ideas person, and I have all these ideas that'll fire out too many times a minute, but having to put it in an order and to carry that out and then make it come to life, I think that was the hardest part, because you can have something in your head, but nobody else will know what it is unless you communicate it effectively, and that was, I think, the most challenging part. But I think the internet is so good, especially YouTube. It's been such a great platform for people to create, and I love seeing all my other favorite YouTubers create good content that was always unique to them. So I really took that on board and have used it as a really good way to get myself out there.
Well, you can run from many things, but you can't run from destiny. That's just me, that's just how it's gonna be. I won't cry no more. I'm calm in the eye of the storm. Calm in the eye of the storm. I'm calm in the eye of the storm. Calm in the eye of the storm. I'm calm in the eye of the storm.
I just released Zone Out It's my first ever EP. It's about the importance of thinking differently and being yourself and using your imagination. I think as adults, imagination is something we don't focus on, and it kind of gets lost along the way. Each song has like a story or like a philosophy or a message from my own times where I would zone out and imagine things. It's kind of like me bringing my world to you.
It's actually, on a musical level, quite an eclectic release. So how reflective is this of the music that you personally like to listen to?
I think it definitely has bits and pieces from all my favorite artists. So I listen to a lot of like indie pop or like psychedelic stuff that I just love the feeling of it because it's so chill. I also love artists though for lyrics and things. I love artists like Neil Diamond, like older artists.
And I got the shakes, didn't even know I was screaming. Slowing down my breath, I was gasping for air, trying to forget my demons. Over and over they play in my head, these nightmares I've been dreaming.
Well, let's talk about the tracks on the EP, and I guess one of the rawer tracks on it is the track Shooting Daisies, which is essentially yourself and an acoustic guitar, but it seems to indicate that you're singing with a real passion for what you're singing about. So how about you tell us a little bit more about that one?
That song, it's an anti-gun, basically an anti-violence kind of song. I've always been very passionate about peace in politics and things like that. And I was always the kid. I was like very sensitive. So if we would learn about things like war and things going on in history, it really didn't make sense to me that we were doing such horrible things with our potential, as human beings. And I would like leave the history class like wanting to cry. I was so intensely passionate about how those things were definitely not good for us as a species. And I think definitely it did come across in the song my passion, because while we were recording it, it wasn't working for a little bit because I put so much feeling into my music that I was like, okay, I gotta make this work. I'm like, what can I do? And so then I'm like, hey, let's try it again to Andrew. And I think he thought I was like looking up lyrics, but I looked up on my phone war and like injury and like all these like horrific images just to get that like reaction from me. So I was like, okay, I got this now. And then because I could like put that much feeling from what I was seeing into the song, it started to work. And he was like, yeah, do it like that again. And I was like, okay.
Guns don't shoot daisies, boy, they kill and they maim. Blood hitting the earth, we're told it stops if we pray. Only we can fight the system, only we can save our race. A general's not a general if we all walk away.
All right, well, let's play the track Blue Skies now from the EP Zone Out. And as you said earlier, the EP is on that particular theme of, finding solitude, using your imagination. I'm just interested to know what sort of environment are you most comfortable in when you're undertaking the songwriting process?
I think somewhere near nature is always good. I find I write songs a lot by, like, if I'm out on my, like, veranda, by, like, the trees, or I would always write them when I lived at my parents' house. I'd always write them outside the front of the house where there was, like, a garden and stuff. I think nature, like, is a natural environment. I'm a very outdoorsy person, so, like, I hate being inside a lot because it feels so caging, which kind of sucks because we've had this lockdown. So I've been inside quite often. But, yeah, I think outdoors is the best place.
Great stuff indeed. All right, well, let's give it a spin then. Congratulations again on your debut EP, Zone Out.
Thank you so much.
Tell me, when you look up at the blue sky, don't you